Storytime about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend and she ended up poisoning me. Disclaimer, is not my storytime, it's not my Instagram. I met my ex-best friend 10 years ago. We hit it off right away in school and were inseparable. But shortly into our friendship, I noticed how jealous and envious she was. She envied my life and everything that I had. I got lots of attention from boys and she didn't. Every time we would go out, I was the one constantly getting hit on. It actually made me feel so bad for her. I stopped dressing up whenever we would hang out, and I even stopped wearing makeup just to make her feel better. She asked me if I was doing that on purpose and I told her no. I told her I just wanted to feel more natural and that it had nothing to do with her. But this actually started working. That's when she started borrowing my clothes and my makeup. She didn't even know how to use makeup, so I would do it for her. Every single weekend that we would go out, she would look really amazing. I would do her makeup and her hair and dress her up before we went out. Usually I would go in jeans and a t-shirt and not do anything to my hair or my face. But like I said, I only did this when I would go out with her. Whenever I went out with other friends, I would always look my best. But it actually started to work. Instead of me getting hit on at the bars and clubs, she would get hit on. And this made her feel so much better. And it actually made me really happy too. She started going on a few dates, and she had really good guys interested in her. One of the guys was in financing, owned a house, and traveled a lot, and was good looking too. The other one owned his own business, was good looking, really tall, and wanted kids right away. He would basically tell her that he wanted to marry her. But instead of being interested in them, she wanted to date more guys. She became a serial dater. Before I knew it, every single weekend I would go to her house to help her get ready for her dates, which by the way would take me 2 to 3 hours to do her hair, makeup, and outfit. But like I said, I was happy to help her. On one occasion, I told her I couldn't come over to do her makeup and her hair because I had a date of my own. She told me I was ungrateful and hung up the phone on me. I was shocked by her behavior. While I was on my date, she called me 10 times. When I answered, she demanded to know where I was. Part 2 is Part 2 of how I stole my best friend's boyfriend and she ended up poisoning me. Disclaimer, it's not my story time, I'm sending me on Instagram. After I see her 10 missed calls while I was on my date, I finally call her back. And when I answered, all she asked me was where I was. I told her I was on my date and that I couldn't talk. That's when she told me that she would just bring the makeup to where I was so that I could help her do her makeup for her date. I was so angry that I decided to defend myself. I told her she was being a brat and super ungrateful. Then I told her I was gonna hang up on her and not talk to her for the next few days. I decided to turn off my phone for the rest of the night. Finally, a few days later, I decided to call her. That's when she gives me a half-ass apology telling me she shouldn't have done that and that she was acting like a brat. That's when I told her I didn't want to do her makeup and hair every single weekend. She said she would learn how to do her own makeup if I could just teach her. So of course I agreed. After that, things got way better between us. She actually ended up becoming girlfriend with one of the guys, the one that was the business owner. She insisted that we do a double date. So I ended up having a date come with me to dinner with them. We were having fun up until my best friend started getting really drunk. This is when she just started acting out. She started telling the guys about how much I would get hit on and about all the dates I've been on, about how many sexy time partners I had. I mean, this is girl code. You do not talk about exes or guys that your girlfriend is dating to her boyfriend or date. I was so angry with her. Her boyfriend looked at me, apologized, and said that he would take her home. So my date and I decided to stay at the restaurant and finish our dinner. Then I get a message from my best friend's boyfriend apologizing on her behalf. He asked me if he could call me on the phone and we talked for an hour. Part 2 is up. Part 3 of how I stole my best friend's boyfriend and she ended up poisoning me. Disclaimer, is not my story time, I'm sending me on Instagram. My BF's boyfriend called me. He apologized for my best friend's behavior while she was drunk. I told him that I would talk to her whenever she was sober. Before I knew it, he and I had been on the phone for a full hour. He was making me laugh so much and we were having such a great conversation. We finally got off the phone and I literally had butterflies in my stomach. And I started thinking about him differently. I mean, I knew that he was my best friend's boyfriend, but he was being so nice. And he was successful and funny and good looking. That's when I decided to cut my best friend off. I stopped answering her texts and phone calls. One day she showed up at my house asking me if I could help her get ready for another date. I told her that I didn't want to be her friend anymore and basically slammed the door in her face. She kept calling me to apologize and eventually I accepted. But her boyfriend and I didn't stop texting. I started to realize that I was falling for him, so I decided to tell him that I had feelings and that we shouldn't talk anymore. That's when he told me that he had feelings for me too. All this while, I would still hang out with my best friend every single weekend. She would bring me food and make us drinks while she was at my place. I started feeling different symptoms after a few weeks. I would get these really bad headaches and I just felt sick all the time. I decided to go to the doctor and they couldn't find anything. One day her boyfriend calls me and tells me that he really wants to see me. He comes over to my house and we kissed. He told me that he wanted to break up with her to be with me. I couldn't resist and I said yes. When we confronted her, she said that she had seen our messages already. She called me a bunch of names and told me that she had been poisoning me. First I didn't believe her, but then I went and got tested and it was true. I haven't spoken to her since and I don't know if I should tell the cops. Him and I are still together. What should I do?
Story time of how I burned down my entire house when I was 8 years old. So basically, we had so many candles in the house, I guess just because my mom was obsessed with candles. I was also obsessed with fire. So every time I seen the candle, I would put my finger in the fire. And no, it didn't hurt me whatsoever. I guess it was just amusing to me. And everybody called me a pyro. So one day I was scrolling on Musical.ly, and on like the Feature Me page, I saw something with a candle. And it was like how to make your own candle or something like that. But you had to make your own candle out of a candle. So I went into my room and I closed my door. And like the first step was melting the candle all the way. So I lit the candle and then I put a piece of paper in there. I don't know why I did, but I did. And the fire started getting so big, so I lifted the piece of paper and I threw it on my rug. I didn't want to get in trouble for fire on the floor, so I just left my room and left it alone. And I kid you not, just a couple minutes later, I hear the smoke detector going off. And my older brother screaming. I'm running out of time, like, for part 2. Part 2 of how I burned down my entire house at just 8 years old. So continuing with the story, after I hear the smoke alarms going off and my brother screaming, I knew exactly what I did. And I blamed it all on my brother. And to this day, they still think it's my brother. Even though it was in my room, but my family believed whatever I said. Anyways, the whole back side of the house was on fire, and we all rush out of the house. And of course, my mom takes care of it. I'm pretty sure she called 911. Well, duh. Sadly, our 2 cats, 2 bunnies, and 4 hamsters were in the house. And our bird, but our bird was getting ready to pass anyways. I'm not sure how, but the house caught on fire so quickly, and the entire thing just blew up into flames. There might have been something else that the fire triggered to make it more big, I guess. I don't really know how to word that. But we ended up raising enough money to move to a different house because we lost every single one of our belongings. When the house burned down, there was only one wall standing, and it was the wall of pictures of my grandma who passed 10 years ago. Storytime of how my best friend got so weirdly obsessed with me that she even plotted to kill my boyfriend. So at the time, me and this girl, let's just call her Olivia, had only been friends for about 2 years. I mean, we really did everything together. We were with each other 24/7, and I mean, we were pretty good friends. But the only thing about our friendship is she did not like when I had other friends. I mean, she didn't have any other friends herself, but literally she would joke around about strangling my other friends because she didn't like when I gave my attention to anyone else. But honestly, I just thought of it as a joke. And then I started dating this guy, let's just name him Jacob. He was probably the sweetest guy I had ever met, and he was a real simp for me. So we started dating and about 4 or 5 months go by, and he started getting these texts from a random number. And it would always be cringy things like leave her or you die, get away from her, and like stupid cringy threats. Then one night, me and him were just hanging out. Then he gets a text with his exact address saying he had till tonight to leave me or he wouldn't see another day. Then we hear a knock at the door. I'm running out of time, like, for part 2. Part 2 of how my best friend got so weirdly obsessed with me that she plotted to kill my boyfriend. So continuing with the story, we heard a knock at the door and it ended up being her. And she said, "Oh, I'm just coming by to check on you and make sure you're okay." Mind you, we were at his house. And he looks at me like, what is she doing here? So I asked her to leave, and then she ends up getting so mad at me just because I asked her to give us alone time. So the night goes on, and then when I get home, she's in my room. At this time, my whole entire family was out of town, and I was the only one home. So I was like, hey. It was literally just like a normal night, and then I go to shower, and when I get back out of the shower, she's gone. And then my boyfriend calls me, and he goes, "Why is Maddie here?" She had like this black mask on, but she's stupid enough to not realize that we know it's her. And I mean, we're being real here. She was my best friend at the time, so of course he's not going to call the police on her. But she had a knife in her hand, and he opens the door and he like pins her against the wall and then calls 911, I guess. And then to sum it up, when they get there, she tells them everything that she was going to do, and then they put her in a mental hospital. But she said that she was going to murder everybody that gets close. Storytime of how my mom kicked me out at age 15 because she found out I was dating a mixed boy. So basically, my mom wasn't strict at all, and she let me do almost anything that I wanted. But when it came to dating, it was a whole different story. I mean, she let me start dating at 12 years old, but every single time I told her I had a boyfriend, the first thing that she would say is, "He better be white." And she'd always say, "If it ain't white, it ain't right." Mind you, my preference was mixed and dark-skinned boys. So of course, I'm going to go after to what I'm attracted to. And at 14, I started dating this kid, and I asked my mom if I could invite my boyfriend to my birthday. We weren't really doing anything big. It was kind of just like a family party with a couple friends. And she said yes. Mind you, she had never met him or seen a picture of him, so she was kind of excited to meet him. So my birthday comes around, and he gets there. And as soon as he walked into the door, I gave him a big hug, and my mom turned around and gave me the most evil look ever. She pulled me aside, and her exact words were, "Is this a joke?" And she literally said, "I trusted you enough to not bring this kind of hood in our house." I'm running out of time, like, for this part 2. Part 2 of how my mom kicked me out at age 15 because she found out I was dating a mixed boy. Continuing with the story, after the party, I had asked him to stay for like an hour or two later. And afterwards, my mom was just being completely rude the entire time towards him. And right in front of him, she screamed at me and said, "I don't want this type of black trash in my house. Please get it out." Mind you, I hate disrespecting my mom, and I never talk back to her. But I yelled back at her and said that was the most disrespectful thing she could have ever said. And while all this is happening, he looks like he's about to bust into tears. Like, I genuinely know this kid had a soft spot for me. So I apologize, and I tell him I think it's best for him to leave. And afterwards, he FaceTimes me, and he tells me that he will do anything to be able to keep me. And after he leaves, my mom tells me that I'm a big disgrace to the family, and she doesn't want me living there no more. All over me bringing a mixed guy to the house. I'm now 19, and I'm still with him. And I really haven't talked to my mom since. But that day, she kicked me out, and I had to go stay with his family. She still wants nothing to do with me because I'm still with a mixed guy. Mom, if you're listening to this, you're a racist piece. Story time of how my entire virtual online class found out that I was pregnant, and one of them ended up telling my mom. So due to COVID, where I live, there is no in-person school, so everybody is virtual. So I was in my first block, and you only have to turn on your cameras for when she does attendance and then when you're talking. So I was called on and I had to answer questions, so I unmuted myself and I turned on my camera. And then when I was done, I turned off my camera and I think I forgot to mute myself back. After that, during that week, I was already having a pregnancy scare, so I FaceTimed my boyfriend and I went to go take a pregnancy test. Mind you, I don't really listen in class to begin with, so I turned the volume all the way back down because when the teacher calls on you once, she doesn't call on you again. So again, I couldn't hear anything happening in the classroom. So I was on the phone with my boyfriend. I was freaking out while I was taking a pregnancy test, and it ended up coming back positive. So I started freaking out and I started bawling my eyes out. And in my room, I was screaming, I'm pregnant, what am I gonna do? I look back over and the session had ended. And everyone in that class is texting me like, oh my God, are you okay? I'm here for you, blah, 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 blah. So of course I start to freak out. I'm running out of time like for part 2. Part 2 of how my whole entire online class found out that I was pregnant and one of them told my mom. So continuing with the story, I texted a couple of them back and I was like, how did you know? And they were like, we heard you sobbing in the background screaming, I'm pregnant. Then one of them goes, we heard some guy in the background screaming, just get a hanger, and you were screaming, no! Then one of them comes to tell me that the teacher had to start a brand new class because I wouldn't mute myself. So then I emailed my teacher and I told her that I was going through a really hard time and I really do apologize. And then she explained to me that everything was fine, like she understands things happen. So we were all good until like 3 days later. And my mom calls me telling me that somebody in my class had told her that I am pregnant. And I tried telling her like, no, like that is not true whatsoever. And then she sends me a recording that somebody else sent her of me in my room bawling my eyes out screaming, I'm pregnant, I don't know what to do. So somebody in my class was a big old snitch and sent a recording of me screaming I'm pregnant to my mom. And my mom is trying to force me to get an abortion, but I don't want to. To sum it up, I'm moving in with my grandma because she's super supportive. And in 3 months, I'll be having a baby boy. Story time of how I got sexually assaulted by my stepdad for 4 years straight and nobody believed me. So my mom got with my stepdad when I was 5 years old, and all of the sexual assaulting started around 6. It went from the little things as of just saying dirty jokes to me, all the way to actually sexually assaulting me. One of the little things that he did is he would hide all of my underwear, then tell me I can't wear the dirty underwear that I had on, so I would have to go without wearing underwear, then he'd force me to wear a dress, so it's easier for him to touch me in all the wrong places. And he would always bribe me to sit on his lap by letting me fake drive the car. He would literally sit in my bed while my mom was at work and force me to watch adult videos, and would force my hand in places that it shouldn't go. He has done so much more things to me, but I don't really want to go in detail with everything else. And then one day he told me that if I ever told anybody about this, that I would be in very big trouble and my life and my mom's life would be at risk. And at such a young age, I didn't know what to do, so of course I kept everything to myself. And then things just got a lot worse. I'm running out of time like for a part 2. Part 2 of how I got sexually assaulted by my stepdad for 4 years straight and nobody did anything about it. Continuing with the story, he started getting more comfortable with doing more and more things to me. It continued for years and years and years. I started to try to stand up for myself, but it never worked. It always would end up just making the situation worse, and he would harm me in spots that my mom isn't gonna check. And again, I was told that if I told anybody, then my life would be at risk, and so would my mom's. And again, I was also younger, so I didn't really know what to do. But then finally came a day where I had enough, and I went to go tell my mom. She told me that I was insane and didn't believe me whatsoever. I went to go try to tell my grandma, my grandpa, my aunt, my uncle, and my brothers, and none of them believed me. None of them believed me until 6 years later. I am now 17, and because my mom was so blindsided by this boy that she didn't believe what was happening in her own household, it caused me to have many scars, very disturbing, traumatizing experiences. Also wish me luck because in exactly 2 weeks from today, I'll be seeing this guy. Story time of how I found out that there was a guy living in my attic. I'm even pretty sure there's a couple articles on this. So basically living in the house was me, my mom, my dad, and my younger sister. This story ends up taking a huge twist, so just stay tuned for that. Also keep in mind that my boyfriend's name at the time was Jacob. When I first started to notice that there was somebody else in my house was when I first started dating Jacob. Mind you, the only time anybody in my entire family has ever been in the attic is the first 2 months that we lived there, and it was only once or twice, and we never seen anything up there. So we would notice that bits of our food would go missing, and every time we packaged leftovers, the leftovers in the Tupperware that we packaged the leftovers in would just completely disappear. And a bunch of my stuff would always go missing. For example, 2 of my pillows and 4 of my blankets gone missing, and my shoes and my clothes, and even my underwear. So one day my boyfriend came over and he left around 1 a.m. So the rest of my family was sleeping. Also, I have the whole entire upstairs to myself, and my mom, dad, and my sister sleeps downstairs. This story just ends up getting really crazy, so like for a part 2. Part 2 of how I found out that there was a guy living in my attic. Continuing with the story, I go downstairs and I walk my boyfriend out to the car. Of course, trying to be quiet because the rest of my family is sleeping. So I go back upstairs. Mind you, I have the whole upstairs to myself. And then I go to the bathroom and there was pee in the toilet. And on the wall in front of the toilet, it said Jacob was here with a heart. So I took a picture of it and I posted it on my private story because I just thought it was funny and cute at the same time. And he slid up and said, what? And then he swore up and down that it wasn't him. So anyways, it freaked me out at first, but at the same time, I didn't really care. So I didn't really pay any mind to it. So to speed the story up, my dad had to go in the attic for something, and he found an actual mattress covered in insulation. And in the corner, he found a guy. The guy looked very sickly, skinny, but scary at the same exact time. So, of course, my dad called 911 right away, and the guy admitted to stealing our food, stealing my underwear, stealing things out of my room, basically stealing from us overall, stealing our food, etc. I'm running out of time, but he ended up being a wanted criminal, but he's in jail now, so yeah.
Story time of how my best friend was catfished by my dad. So me and my best friend were kind of just like swiping through Tinder for fun. And then she came across this really, really hot dude. So of course, she swiped right and they talked all night long. And he said he had an Android so he couldn't FaceTime, but his messages were blue, so I thought something was off. She was too blinded to see that something was up in the first place because she was messaging with a really hot guy. So about a week of them just like texting back and forth and I guess getting to know each other, they decided that they were going to meet up. So they both decided that they were going to meet up at an Olive Garden near them. And you see, as her best friend, of course, I'm going to have to go with her. So I got dressed up and I sat about 5 tables away from her. And we got there about 30 minutes earlier than we were supposed to be there. Okay, so my best friend had 3 bowls of fettuccine alfredo before he got there. So when he got there, it wouldn't look like she ate a lot. Then I see my dad walk in, all dressed up and fancy with a bow tie and everything. This story time just gets so much more funnier, so like for a part 2. Part 2 of how my best friend was catfished by my dad. Continuing with the story, I see my dad walk into the restaurant all dressed up. Mind you, my dad's married. To my mother, of course. So I was like, ooh, my dad and my mom are finally going on a date together. And then he looks over to my best friend and walks over to the table. When I tell you my heart dropped, my heart has never sank so deep inside me so fast. He sits down and asks her, is this Mackenzie? When I tell you I busted out laughing so freaking hard I fell out of my chair. And almost everybody in the restaurant turned around and looked at me, and so did my dad. And I walk over to the table and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? My best friend is literally just sitting there in shock, no emotion on her face. Then he looks at us, he looks really confused, his face goes blank, and then he goes, I was just trying to teach y'all girls a lesson. I told my mom and I was just getting a laugh out of it, and then she looked through his phone and said that he was meeting up with a bunch of 14-year-old girls. So comes to find out, my dad is a pedophile. My mom kicked him out, and if you're one of those girls, I really do apologize. Storytime of how my stepmom got so jealous of me and my dad's bond that she plotted to kill me. So I never really liked my stepmom in the first place because she was a little controlling over my dad. And I just knew that she hated me and I really hated her too. But you know, my dad was in love and he seemed happy, so I didn't really say anything. And my dad would always take me to lunch on Saturdays and Sundays. And we'd have like a dad-daughter bonding day, I guess. And me and my dad were just super close. And every single weekend, me going to lunch with him would start an argument between them two because she said I was taking time away from them two. My dad really never chose sides, but I never really got involved in the relationship as much as I hated her because I just loved seeing my dad happy. Also, at this time, I was 15. And what I'm about to say next might sound just a little crazy and unbelievable, but I'm not sure who she was on the phone with. But while on the phone with somebody, she was talking about getting rid of me. Mind you, my mom had passed away when I was younger, and I really had no other family to go to. Now, this is where the story takes a turn for the worse and she tries to get rid of me. I'm running out of time, like for the crazy part 2. Part 2 of how my stepmom got so jealous of me and my dad's bond that she plotted to kill me. Continuing on with the story, I don't know who she was on the phone with, but I overheard her on the phone saying that she was going to get rid of me. And honestly, I didn't really care and I didn't really think anything of it because I knew she was crazy, but I didn't think she was that crazy. So all of a sudden, she started making me breakfast. And I'm not a breakfast person. I can't eat right when I get up. So every time she would make me breakfast, I'd be like, thanks, but I'm not hungry. And she would get so mad. Like, so freaking mad. I'm not going to get into all the little details, but comes to find out she was putting rat poison in my food. She had set up cameras in my room. And I don't know what kind of sense this makes. I think she's just crazy, but she started to hide snakes in my room and claim it was my fault that the snakes were coming in my room. Yeah, doesn't really make any sense. Once I told my dad and my dad got out of his little in love stage with her, he finally stepped up and said something to her. And she admitted that she wanted me dead. He eventually called the cops, and to this day, she is in jail for attempted murder. Oh, did I forget to mention the day that he broke up with her, she tried to stab me in the throat. Storytime of how my dad slept with my 16-year-old sister. So yes, my dad did sleep with his biological daughter. So at the time, my sister was 16 and I was 14. Okay, so my sister and my dad had a really weird connection, but I just thought it was because he favorited her and he didn't really like me that much. He ended up saying his favorite was her because he knew that she was easy. But anyways, back to the story. Every single Friday, he would pick my sister up from school during lunchtime and take her back to the house, and they would have like daddy-daughter lunch there. And then my mom would do the same thing with me on Mondays. Okay, so my sister, one of her friends takes her to school and I take the bus in the morning.
and I missed the bus one day. And at the time of me and my sister going to school, my parents already at work. So I just decided that I was gonna have a day off. And yes, this day was a Friday. I'm pretty sure you guys can already see where this story is headed. But I was in my room, I was just chilling, sleeping, and then all of a sudden I hear stuff happening between my dad.
Part 2 of how I caught my dad sleeping with my 16-year-old sister.
Continuing with the story, after my dad and my sister come home for their lunch, I get woken up from my amazing nap hearing my dad and my sister doing the thingy. When I tell you my sister was off for waiting for marriage, oh my gosh. My sister wouldn't even touch a boy in the wrong spot before marriage. So I don't know how this came about. But listen, I am nosy as heck, so of course I tiptoed all the way over to them. They were in her room. I whipped my phone out so fast, I acted like I was on a talk show, and I said, "Presenting." I opened the door, and I see my sister and my dad actually sleeping together. They were under the blanket, so I didn't see any private areas. My sister was really, really popular at school, so out of this situation, I got her to walk me around school everywhere. My dad bought me a car and gave me $1,000. Haha, I made him go broke. Then after I got everything I wanted, I told my mom. She kicked my sister and my dad out, and I'm pretty sure they live together now, but I haven't talked to him since.
Storytime of how I found out that I was pregnant with my stepbrother's baby. So basically I was 16 at the time and my mom didn't let me date. So I had to keep dating this guy a secret from my mom. And every weekend this guy would come over and she was dating him, but she didn't think that we were ready to meet his kids yet. Okay, so to be able to hang out with my boyfriend, me and him both told our parents that we were going to a friend's house. And my best friend's mom does not care what she does, so me and him would both always go there. So about a year into dating this kid, me and him were both tired of keeping it a secret from our parents. And legit, coincidentally, the same exact night that I was going to tell my mom about my boyfriend is the same exact night her boyfriend was going to bring his kids over so we could meet them. So I was going to wait till after we met them so she was in a better mood. And when my mom's boyfriend got there, so did my boyfriend. Me and him literally don't know how we didn't catch on. So we both decided not to tell our parents yet. And then me and my boyfriend decided that we were just going to take advantage of it because my mom's boyfriend was going to be moving in, so that means I can live with my boyfriend. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how I found out that I was pregnant with my stepbrother's baby. Continuing with the story, my mom's boyfriend moved in, and because my boyfriend was my mom's boyfriend's son, he also moved in. So every time my mom and her boyfriend, aka my boyfriend's dad, would go to sleep, me and my boyfriend would always end up in the same bed. I don't know how we hid this for such a long time, but they ended up telling us that they were getting married, so me and my boyfriend decided that we were going to tell them that we had been dating for, I think it was 2 years at the time. My mom and his dad were absolutely okay with it, and at that, they made us share a room in our new house. And an exact week after they got married, I ended up taking a pregnancy test just for fun, and it came out positive. I was literally so scared, and 2 days later, my mom told me that she was pregnant. So as we speak now, I have a 2-year-old brother by my boyfriend's dad, and I have a 2-year-old baby by my stepbrother. Oh, also for another story time, I caught my stepbrother, aka my boyfriend, sleeping with my mom. Yeah.
Story time of how I found out that my 13-year-old sister was sleeping with my teacher and nobody ever did anything about it. So this is the first time that I'm actually telling anybody because I'm finally old enough to realize that all of this was just wrong. So at the time, my sister was in 8th grade and I was in 6th grade. So my sister claimed that she needed extra help in history, and I guess my mom trusted him because after school he would take me and my sister to his house and then help my sister. And he would always say he had to get ready before he tutored her because they would go in the room with the door shut. But he said that was the only way for her to learn best. And while we were waiting for him to get ready, me and my sister would play this literal funnest and most satisfying game ever. It's where you grow little plant dudes, and me and her literally got so addicted to it. The link to that is also going to be in my bio. And then he would start playing the game with her, trying to get on her good side. And then they make me wait in the living room for about an hour while they study. And every day she would come out saying, "Oh my god, I learned so much today." I mean, she did learn something. Anyways, I'm running out of time, for part 2. Part 2 of how I caught my 13-year-old sister sleeping with her teacher. So continuing on with the story, I was just waiting outside the room until they got done. And one day my mom called me and said that it was an emergency and she had to pick us up early. So I knocked on the door really lightly and then I opened the door. And I'm surprised it wasn't locked. And I opened the door and I see my 13-year-old sister and her 42-year-old teacher just getting it on. I mean, I ain't no snitch, so I didn't say nothing. At the time, I was 11 years old in 6th grade and I high-fived her. Then the teacher bribed me with $500 to not say anything. Again, I was in 6th grade at the time, so my parents would definitely wonder where I got the money from. So the teacher told me that if I let them keep doing their thing, he'll make this fake raffle and say that I won it. Because me and my sister were so close, I never snitched on her. And this is the first time I'm telling the story. Me and my sister don't talk anymore. So if you're that teacher that gave me $500 to keep effing my older sister, you are probably one of the most disgusting people that I've ever met. And if this story gets out there, sorry for saying this, but I need to get this out there, John Wilson, you deserve to rot in jail. Storytime of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Yes, biological brother, same mom, same dad. So a little background information, my mom passed away when I was 2, my dad is currently in jail, and I live with my grandma. So at the time, I was 14, about to be 15, he was 17, about to be 18. So how this all started is one day I was at the baseball game with my friends, and he happened to be there. I was fangirling over this boy. Like, I saw him, and I was like, I'm going to marry him one day. I was feeling a little bold, so I went over and got his snap, and then I figured out that he had the same last name as me, and I was like, dude, that is dope. My exact words were, now I don't have to change my last name when we get married. So we hung out the rest of the baseball game, and I was starting to fall in love with this kid. Like, his smile, his laugh, I talked about him to my friends the rest of the night, and me and him started snapping for a while. So we started to hang out a lot, we may have hooked up a couple times, but I had to keep this all secret from my grandma because she forbid I dated somebody. So fast forward a couple weeks, we start dating. Months and months and months go by. Our 9 months come and I finally tell my grandma. And this is where it gets bad. I'm running out of time, like, for part 2. Part 2 of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Continuing on with the story, me and his 9 months were coming up. Also, he was adopted and his foster family absolutely adored me, so they were okay with me keeping it a secret from my grandma. They were the ones to help me tell her. So not only were our 9 months coming up, but his birthday was the next day. And he told me the only thing that he wanted for his birthday was for my part of the family to know that we were together. So one day I sat down at the table and I was like, hey, I think it's about time that I tell you. And then I told her everything and she asked for a picture. I showed her a picture and she was like, aw, he's cute. How old is he? At first she was okay with everything, and the age difference she was kind of iffy about, but then she accepted it. Then she asked his name. I told her his name, she said last name, gave her the last name, and she flipped out. She took my phone, didn't give me an explanation, and told me that if I ever spoke to him again, I would never be allowed out of the house. Finally, after she calmed down, she came to tell me that he was my brother. She asked if we had did anything, and I of course said no, but yes, we did. I'm running out of time, like, for part 3. Part 3 of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Continuing on with the story, I didn't believe her not one bit, but then I realized the reason why I was attracted to him is because he kind of looked like me. No, I'm just kidding. All jokes aside, I did start to question because everybody did say we looked like brother and sister. I asked her for proof. She didn't have any actual proof that we were brother and sister, but then everything started adding up. I told him, and then he didn't believe me until he asked his foster parents who his parents were. Mind you, me and him never spoke about our real parents because we both told each other that we were uncomfortable speaking about it. Then we did find out that we had the same exact mom and dad. Me and him were both in absolute shock and had no idea what to do. I mean, we kind of were in love with each other, you know? So we decided to just date for a couple more months. I had to tell my grandma that we broke up and we were just hanging out and getting to know each other as brother and sister. But then we both decided that we needed to break up because it started to get a little weird. We never told absolutely anybody about this but my grandma. His foster parents didn't even know that we were siblings. And to this day, me and him do still flirt. First time of how I found out that my little sister's teacher hid cameras in their bathroom. So my sister at the time is in 2nd grade and they have bathrooms inside their classroom. Well, it's just one bathroom inside the classroom that they all use. And at that school, 4th grade and below, every single classroom has a bathroom inside the room so the kids don't have to wander the halls. So parents' conferences that night started at 6 o'clock and ours was scheduled for about 6:30. But we ended up not being able to make it at 6:30 because we had to do something, so we ended up coming around 7:45. Which at the time, everybody was already gone. So we go, and my parents sit down with the teacher, and they talk. We had gone to Sonic before that, and I got a blue raspberry slushie, and I ended up spilling that all over the floor. So I run into the bathroom, and I grab a bunch of paper towels, and right when I got in there, something just felt really weird to me. So after I cleaned it up, I walked back into the bathroom, and in the top right of the bathroom, in the corner, there was a box with a hole in it. I text my mom what I saw, and right after I get out of the bathroom, she says she has to go to the bathroom. I'm running out of time, like, for this crazy part, too. Part 2 of how I found out that my sister's teacher was hiding cameras in their bathroom. So continuing on with the story, my mom goes into the bathroom, and I'm not sure what she did in there, but my crazy mother comes out with the box that was around the camera, cussing, and I could not get her to stop yelling. The teacher then says that they have that in there for safety reasons. They have a camera in a 2nd grader's bathroom for safety reasons. Yeah, okay. Anyways, my mom was really mad, and they ended up calling the non-emergency number for the police. So then when they got there, they had to search his phone. I don't know what the police really do in this type of situations, but they ended up searching his phone. And on his phone, they found recordings of the students in the bathroom, and they found zoomed-in screenshots from the recordings of the children's private areas. My sister's teacher had also had recordings of other teachers using the bathroom, and zoomed-in pictures of their private areas. Yes, this teacher is in jail, and I'm pretty sure there might be an online article about it. But it's crazy to think that a disgusting person like this would set up cameras in a child's bathroom. Story time of how I walked in on my boyfriend trying to sleep with my dog. Yes, you did hear me right. My boyfriend tried to sleep with my dog.
Okay, so at the time, me and this boy were dating for about 2 years. We usually see each other almost every single day, but because of COVID, at the time, me and my boyfriend couldn't see each other for about 4 weeks. So basically, me and him were trying to surprise each other at the same time. So to his knowledge, I was staying at my grandparents' house and I was supposed to come back Friday. So he decided that he was going to surprise me, and my mom let him stay the night at my house Thursday night so he could surprise me when I got home Friday. So I heard about him trying to surprise me, so I decided I was going to come home Thursday night instead so I could surprise him. So comes Thursday night, I come home, I turn off my Life 360 so he doesn't know where I'm at. I get home, I ask my mom where he's at. She said he was in my room. Mind you, it's about midnight at the time because I couldn't get home till then. I walk into my room and I kid you not, he was trying to sleep with the dog. Pants off, everything. And the dog is a boy. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how I caught my boyfriend trying to sleep with my dog. So after I walk in the room and see his pants down trying to bang the dog, I don't know how, but for like 3 minutes he does not notice that I'm standing there staring at him, watching him trying to bang my dog. But then finally he looks over and me and him are just making direct eye contact, like staring at each other like, This man had the audacity to say, I was practicing for when you get home. But your wee-wee inside my dog, yeah, no. At that moment, I was literally speechless. I did not know what to say. This man didn't even bother picking up his pants. He just asked me if I wanted to join him. And of course I said yes. So I went to join him and the dog. No, I'm literally just kidding. My exact words were, pick up your dang pants and go bang your own dog, you weirdo. He looked at me and said, will do. Like, what? I ended up going to tell my mom what just happened because I was so shocked. And she said, oh, I seen him doing that. I just didn't want to say anything. Like, what? Storytime of how we have the absolute worst luck with babysitters. In the course of 8 months, we went through about 5 babysitters until we finally just gave up. The first babysitter we're going to start with is, let's just call her Mary. So Mary was this young girl, and she seemed to love kids. We have many cameras in the house, and my mom overheard her telling her friend on the phone one day that the cameras in the house don't work. Mary, how would you know that? So one day, my stepdad gets on the camera, and she is waxing her hoo-ha in our kitchen. Yes, waxing her hoo-ha in our kitchen. Then doesn't wash her hands and has the baby smell her hands. Then a couple days later, my mom was on the camera. She takes out the vape and takes the video of the baby trying to hit the vape. Then a couple hours later, I'm scrolling through Instagram, and on her Instagram story, I see this baby swag at 6 months old with her trying to get the baby to hit the vape. And look, the babysitters just get worse from here on out. Like for part 2 of our worst experiences with babysitters. Storytime of how I figured out that my sister was trying to kill me. So me and my sister were like best friends when we were little, but she was a very, very jealous person. So years and years go on, but her jealousy seems to start to grow. So I never really thought about it until I found out that she really wanted me dead. But throughout the years, she would do little things to get me hurt. For example, she pushed me off the top of our treehouse and I ended up breaking my arm. But every time I got hurt, my family would baby me and she would get even more mad. So at this time, we're about 16 years old, and I had to go in her room to get her laundry. And under her laundry, I found her diary, or journal, or whatever you call it. I was flipping through the pages, I found out some interesting and crazy things. Then one was named The Perfect Murder. What an original name. She had this big, huge dresser in her room. She went into a lot of detail about how she was going to kill me. But it stated that she was going to push the dresser on top of me and jump on it until I, then scream for help. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how I found out that my sister was trying to kill me. Continuing on with the story, after I read what I read in her diary, I decided it was best to keep it to myself. So about a month and a half later, I start to think to myself, and I'm like, okay, maybe she's not actually gonna do it. Y'all, I don't know why, but I was literally not scared that my sister was, like, about to kill me.
So about 2.5 months after I read what I read in her diary, she calls me into her room and in this fakest voice ever goes, "Sissy, why are you being so distant from me?" I just looked at her like she was crazy. Then she goes, "I know you read my diary." At that exact moment, she looked psycho. I don't know what I was thinking, but right after she said that, my reflex was to knock her out. So I knocked her out, then I stomped on her head. I called my mom into the room and read her the diary, or whatever the heck my sister put in there. Mind you, while I'm reading my mom this diary, she's still knocked out on the floor. My mom then continues to say she's going to put her in a mental hospital. So to this day, my sister's in a mental hospital, and if you're listening to this and you ever get out, please don't kill me. I'm actually living an amazing life right now.